You guys wanted a story where Bullseye kills a god, so here it is. So this takes place in the Valkyrie comics, and essentially that takes place after the events of War of Realms. So Jane Foster is no longer Thor, she's now Valkyrie. And initially she ends up meeting a group called the Fast Five. Now I know it sounds weird, bear with me here. The Fast Five is kind of awesome, right? You have Gold Rush, you have Silver Ghost, you've got Green Light who says like and subscribe, which is exactly what you guys should be doing right now. You got Red Line, right? It's just kind of these goofy characters, essentially. But one of them has Dragon Fang. Now, Dragon Fang is traditionally the sword of Brunhild, the original Valkyrie. And the reason why is because after War of Realms, there were all kind of Asgardian weapons that were just left strewn around the city of New York. One of them has been picked up. Now, by and large, this fight between Valkyrie and the Fast Five is not overly important, and she does away with them pretty quickly. But one of the guys, Gold Rush, ends up taking off. And then once he ends up down an alley, somebody trips him, right? He literally falls over, the sword goes flying out of his hand. This guy picks up the sword and kills Gold Rush, only for us to find out it's Bullseye. And Bullseye's been hired to kill someone. And he's like, I've got Dragon Fang, I have the tool that I need. I'll let you know once I've killed the target. FYI, the target's not Jane Foster. Nobody cares if she gets killed by Bullseye. So here's the thing. This initially does switch over to Jane Foster talking to Brunhild, but it's really more just her expressing the fact that she's so remorseful over the idea that she's effectively lost Dragon Fang and the winged horse. You'll see what that means here in a minute. But what Brunhild tells her is that if she's going to hunt for Dragon Fang, she needs someone with the ability to see everything. And so this leads to Jane Foster allying herself with Heimdall. Now, of course, as you guys know, Heimdall sees virtually everything. And while his eyesight has been diminished as a result of War of Realms, he's still incredibly capable. But it's kind of a test to see what it is that he's actually capable of seeing. And it turns out that he's not able to see a whole lot, because as Jane Foster looks around and in fact actually has her own vision allowing her to see things, her death perception kicks in. Now, for those of you guys who don't know about this, when it comes to being a Valkyrie, you can see when death is coming onto a person, which is to say, when they're about to die. And it allows her to intervene or to step in to prevent that death from happening. With Heimdall, she's not fast enough, because it turns out the person that Bullseye was hired to kill was none other than Heimdall himself. And Bullseye stabs this guy through the chest. Now, that's not enough to kill Heimdall right off the bat, but instead, Jane Foster kind of starts to freak out while Bullseye starts talking trash, right? He's like, God of seeing, huh? I guess it wasn't enough. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was pretty good, but I'm magic. And so you get Bullseye on a winged horse wielding a sword. And it's one of the most dope things that I think I've ever seen, and I had no idea I needed it until we got it. It's phenomenal. Now, the other part of this is that Jane Foster has her own weapon as well. And in fact, the basis behind it is a lot more interesting than you would initially think. So Jane Foster's weapon is actually called Underyarn, and basically it's made out of Mjolnir from the original Ultimate Universe in Marvel Comics. What makes this weapon so interesting is that it can become whatever Jane Foster needs it to be at any particular point in time. But while Heimdall is just laying on the ground bleeding, right, Jane Foster takes it onto herself to face off against Bullseye. And she knows who he is, right? It's one of the coolest things. She says, his name is Bullseye. He's a murderer. He stabbed Heimdall through the chest. He turns whatever he's holding into a deadly weapon. And right now, he's holding the deadliest weapon that I know of, Dragon Fang, sword of the previous Valkyrie. The magic in it boosts weapon skill. And this is Bullseye we're talking about. I should probably be worried. Instead, I'm pissed off. But she also has every reason to be concerned here, because Bullseye is already one of the most prodigious weapon masters in the entirety of the Marvel Universe, capable of going toe-to-toe with pretty much anybody. When you take that skill set and you amplify it, which is exactly what Dragon Fang does, suddenly one of the deadliest people in the Marvel Universe becomes what is likely the deadliest person in the Marvel Universe. And it's kind of nuts, because initially he seems to get the upper hand on Jane Foster. Now, of course, he doesn't necessarily do that, and Jane kind of gets the upper hand to a degree. But one of the things to remember is that Bullseye, while he may be down, he's never out, because aid comes in the form of his winged horse, who kicks Jane Foster in the head. And so it leaves her momentarily incapacitated, and that's where Bullseye is just like magic kick from a magic pony. It's gotta hurt, but don't worry, I got the anesthetic. And he tells her just one thing though, and this is just for the stats. Have you ever gone out with Daredevil. But again, Bullseye, kind of just being this psychopath, just keeps on joking around, right? Cracking all these jokes when he's about to kill this girl. Because the reality here is that when it comes to Bullseye doing somebody in, it doesn't really matter to him all that much. And in fact, he says that, I love killing people. And for this kill, I'm getting paid big time. But then Heimdall shows back up again. And actually, he's incensed because he says, mortal man, you would dare. She is Valkyrie, mortal man. She is of Asgard. And what are you made of? Mud, mud, and corpse meat. And you would dare. You would dare make war on the gods. Then let me show you war. And the response of Bullseye, sure thing, big man, but you show me yours, and I'll show you mine. And he grabs a sword and plunges it through the chest yet again of Heimdall. And this time, there's no coming back because Jane Foster is able to wrestle the sword from Bullseye's grip, but it's too late because at that point, Bullseye kicks Heimdall off the building. Bullseye is so dope. He kicks Heimdall off of the building and then he tells her, you got a choice, right? You can either hold me here or you can go catch him. One of the two. And with her being a superhero, Bullseye knowing this, he knows she's going to go after Heimdall, which is exactly what she does. She goes racing down, of course, having her wings, and then she keeps Heimdall from hitting the ground and basically dying immediately. And the best she can do is kind of buy time. He is still savable at this point, right? She still can keep him alive if she can get him to a hospital, but the response of Heimdall here is no, right? When Jane Foster starts talking about the significance of Dragonfang, the reality here and kind of the undercurrent of her character's story over the course of this is that she's still holding on to the legacy of Brunhild. She hasn't quite taken the Valkyrie legacy unto herself and forged her own path. So she's walking somebody else's road. And that's why the sword is so significant to her. But that's where Heimdall says, is the sword really all that sacred, right? Metal and spells, is that the sacred thing? And he says, if he holds Dragonfang, a man like that, how sacred can that sword really be? Or is it simply that you are just making it more sacred than it is? And he says, sometimes you have to let go. Lady Jane knows that lesson. Can the Valkyrie learn? And where Jane Foster is looking around throughout all of this, she sees Death's head over this veteran, right? Who's just kind of sitting over there on the side of the road. And that's when she realizes Bullseye's about to kill this guy. Because at that point, Bullseye throws the sword back down and it almost kills this guy, right? Jane Foster's able to get him out of the way. But keep in mind, whoever wields the sword, not only can they summon a winged steed, they can recall the sword back to themselves, which is exactly what Bullseye does. He literally just whistles for it and it comes flying back into his hand and the game is on. And it's pretty dope because he comes flying down on her like this angel of death. And he's like, it's a sword, dummy. It's a weapon and weapons love me. And when you're dead, I'm going to put it to work on all these gawkers. I'll cut out their spines and make a sign out of all of them. A sign of spines. Bullseye was here just because I can. And lady, I absolutely can. With this sword in my hand, I can do whatever I want forever. And if you don't think I won't, just wait and watch. And there's literally all these death's heads over all these innocent people. And that's where she starts to realize Bullseye's telling the truth. He will kill every single person here for no other reason than the fact that he can. And so ultimately, she kind of has to let the idea of Brunhild go. She summons her weapon into literally a gauntlet. And when that happens, it shatters Dragonfang, destroys Dragonfang completely. And so at that point, Bullseye is taken out like that. I mean, she literally just incapacitates him with a quickness because now he's just a dude. And so in response to this, because Heimdall is basically dying, Valkyrie fulfills her role when she removes his spirit from his body and then takes him to the afterlife. The kicker about this is she does not take him to Valhalla. Instead, like we mentioned in the video with the death of immortal Thor, she takes him to the place beyond the far shore. Now, this does go into that journey, right? They travel through the multiverse, they end up in the far shore, or at least Heimdall travels to the far shore, and that's when he ends up in the land of the dead from immortal Thor. But you guys asked for this comic. I figured I would give it to you. You guys know I aim to please. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.